Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Spurs have signed Kota Takai out of nowhere. But who is he? We're going to give you all the information on his strengths, weaknesses, and how he affects Spurs' squad, because there's some complex situations going on there. Will he be a key man of our Champions League squad, Premier League, or both? You're about to find out. So, Max, I'll start with you. Who is Kota Takai?
Yeah, so Kota Sakai, I'm sure, before this morning, many Spurs fans had not even heard his name, had not heard of him whatsoever. But here we are today. We found out he's set to join Spurs this summer for about £5 million is the mooted fee, which is a record fee for a transfer out of the J League, which is pretty surprising actually. But he's 20 years old. He's 6'3", 6'4", depending on where you look. He's a unit basically. He spent all of his career so far at Kawasaki Frontale, I believe, which is one of the primary, dominant teams in the J League. I believe they last won the title in 2021, and they've had some really significant players coming out of their team. We've seen Mitoma in recent years. They've also had Kengo Nakamura, and which I'm excited to tell you guys this for the first time as well. They've had Leandro Damião as well. So what a beautiful callback. Yep, destiny.
What's he good at?
Yeah, so he has a lot of strengths. He's obviously, as I mentioned, his physical stature stands at 6'3", really built, especially for his age at only 20 years old. You can see from a lot of his J League highlights how dominant he is in the air. That's the primary strength that you can see right off the bat. He's got a good catalog of headed goals. He's also really good on set plays, which we've seen Brentford do a lot of under Thomas Frank, doing some intricate nod downs to where another player can finish it at the back post sort of thing. He's also really good on the ball. He has really good progressive passing. He spends a lot of time picking up the ball on the right side of the two center backs and then kind of sending it in behind to the right channel for the winger to pick up and run in behind off of, which is another, I think, staple of Thomas Frank's Brentford side. We've seen Mboma do that on a lot of occasions in these last couple seasons. So it's a great fit as far as what his role is already included at Kawasaki. He's also a pretty aggressive defender. He's able to step up high, win the ball off players running through the midfield. And he's really good at running into the channel and like that signature Van de Ven tackle, sprinting down a player who's in the wide areas and sliding across and either winning the ball or just sending it out for a throw. He's also good at defending deep, so he has both. He's pretty dynamic as far as box defending and more open spaces. So yeah, I think that's kind of an overall summary. I mean, he's a really good blend of traits that we'd look for. He's obviously pretty raw for a young player, which we'll get into, but he looks to be really promising.
So, Deej, raw normally leads to the conversation of, should we say weaknesses? Is that a bit harsh? Development areas for a player. Was there any other strengths you wanted to mention, or were you going to explain some of the areas of improvement that he'd perhaps be working on with Thomas Frank?
Well, we can jump into the game, like the playing areas of his improvement before we talk about some of the other, I'd say, like, not necessarily outside of football, but not necessarily like playing, like, ability factors that lead me to be like excited about his like potential. So I guess one of the main weaknesses that's kind of been brought up when I've like watched him play and talking to other people, mostly Max, about him is he's not the fastest. Again, like, we're not signing Van de Ven 2. There isn't really a Van de Ven 2.0, but this definitely isn't someone who's going to blow you away with pace, at least off the block. Like, once he gets up to speed, he can, like, he's 6'3.5", we'll call it. You can really only be so slow with the long strides that he takes when he runs, but it takes him a while to get up to that speed, so he's not going to be someone who can, like, he'll have to position himself well to like cope with the runs of faster players that he'll see in the Premier League. I think that kind of positioning is probably his biggest weakness at the moment, but I think that is very much due to his age. We've mentioned that he's like a front foot defender, which means that he's going to need to be like, he's going to want to step up. He's going to want to win the ball. Does this remind you of someone else that we might know in Tottenham's back line? But yeah, he wants to step up. He wants to win the ball, but oftentimes that means sometimes he'll step up too far. He'll leave himself a little bit out of position, and teams can exploit that. There are other times where he's a little bit too, I'd say, eager to want to step up. So like he'll like start pre-stepping up, and so he'll bring himself out of position with his center back partner, which is something that can, like, obviously that's something else that's exploitable. So those are things that are issues, but they're not really issues for a 20-year-old, if that makes sense.
especially not when you look at Thomas Frank's Brentford, right? And his centre-backs at the moment, Nathan Collins isn't exactly brimming with pace either, or Ben Mee and the other options he's got there. His defence isn't built on needing pace, even though his teams do push up and like to press. He seems to counter the counters with other players in the team, not necessarily the centre-backs. So, but Deej, well, like, how does he fit in at Spurs? Because we've got quite an array of centre-backs, right? We've got, like you said, Mickey van der Ven, who's our rapid left centre-back, who's a good ball player and a good dribbler, but perhaps aerially he's not the greatest. You've got Romero, who's very much an all-rounder, very intelligent player, has his injury issues from time to time, but he's that leader in defence. Davies, a converted centre-back, and he's always known Mr. 7 out of 10. Danso's done well to slot in as well, but where's he going to fit in? There's a lot of centre-backs there.
There are a lot of center backs. But I mean, as we saw from this past season, you can never have too many. Absolutely not. Especially
that
if
is
you could
true.
get
We
someone.
ran out.
We did run out, and we brought in one since. So this is the second. So now maybe we could have fielded an actual like squad of center backs. I think part of the movement is that part of the reason he's being brought in is because we're not going to be starting the season with Dragusin. So because his injury is going to last, I think, at least until like the middle of the season. And so we need to have a contingency plan for if one of our center backs gets injured. We can't just roll out like Archie Gray again, because that's a disservice to him and his development. We need to have someone there who can play that position, who we expect to play that position in the future. And so that is a place where Takai fits well. He also, we'll talk a little bit more about squad registration later, but his age, I believe, is advantageous for this particular season. I may be incorrect on that, but specifically for the Premier League. And otherwise, it's just, I don't know. I think it's always good to grab young players of the season from other leagues. This is the kind of signing that if Brighton made it, you would say they're planning for the future, quality data-driven signing, whatever, because it's Tottenham. We're not necessarily getting that same kind of audits from sections of our fan base, which I think is a bit unfair.
Our fans want us to sign them after they've gone to Brighton and they're worth £100 million. Then we want them.
And we can't register them for Europe.
You've got to have a balance, don't you? You've got to have a bit of both. You can't sustainably spend to that level. So you have to find that balance of getting these youngsters on a conveyor belt coming through of this caliber. And there's no reason to say, Lucas Berrival, he's a teenager. He's clearly an upgrade on our first team and the senior players we had in there. So I don't want to use the age as a reason to say he can't be a valuable player in the first season. Did you touched on the squad registration situation there? Max, I know you've done a lot of research on this, and we'll pin the link into the video here. You can check out the squad status of Spurs and why it's complicated. But there's different types of players you're allowed in your squad. There's 28 players in total, right, Max? And they consist of 4 club-grown players. How many homegrown players is it?
So for the Premier League, you need you can have a maximum. So 25 senior squad, 25 player total for your senior squad. You can have 8 homegrown players, and then 17 of those are non-homegrown players. But we're actually we have an advantage in the Premier League with this particular signing because the under 21 count is essentially unlimited. So he does turn 21 in September. I would assume that he would still fit into the under 21s for this first season, and then come into our non-homegrown quota for the next season. But obviously the downside of maybe we've not signed them young enough, we don't get that 2 to 3 year period where we can keep them at the club and then eventually allow them to achieve that homegrown status.
What's this B-lit? Because the European squad is more complicated, right? The rules in the Premier League are a little bit more relaxed. We don't have squad registration issues so much in the Premier League. This is about Europe, the challenges, because we currently have our full allocation of 18 non-homegrown players in place. And that includes all the players we've offloaded already, right? So that doesn't include the players we've offloaded already. It's already full. So you're talking about offloading bigger names like Bissouma or Son, Odeberg, names like that have come up to make room for these additional players. So he doesn't benefit from the unlimited under 21 allowance that you'd get in the Premier League squad in this case, does he? But you mentioned something about B list. Now, what's a B list, and does he qualify for this?
Yeah, so obviously the UEFA rules are much different, much more complicated, extremely intricate and difficult to understand. But as you said, we're pretty much maxed out for our UEFA squad limit. We're a couple players over as it stands for our senior squad list. But there is the B list. Essentially, what the B list is again under similar to the Premier League, an under 21 player, but they would have had to been registered at Spurs for 2 or more years between the age group of 15 and 21. So again, like the point I made about signing him a little bit too late, almost, we're not gonna be able to convert him into a B-list player in the next couple seasons, which means that he'll essentially remain as a non-homegrown player in our squad. You would assume that, due to him needing sort of a teething period in the Premier League and in the Champions League, obviously, even more so, we would probably leave him out of the squad in this first period. There's still, I think, a chance that he would go out on loan, despite reports coming out that he's, going to be included in the first team. So, yeah, unfortunately, he's not really serving to benefit us in the UEFA squad list. It would probably be a thing of, after a few years of development, if he's ready to be a starting center back or at least in the rotation, then we would utilize him there.
Deej, could you see a world, though, because Kulusevski's out until, I believe it's September currently, he's forecast to be out. Dragoson's forecast out to the mid-season break. Do you see a world in which he temporarily gets a spot and then is moved back out the squad? Or do you think he's just going to be a Premier League option for us?
Yeah, I think that definitely could happen, but that kind of is up to what we do in the rest of the window. Like mentioned already, we're kind of really, really tight on spots, and I would be surprised if that spot ended up going to a 20-year-old, or I guess 21 at the start of the season. But I think it is definitely something that we will, because like think about last season in the Europa League where we couldn't register Jed Spence. Like, we're not just run up on maximum number of like foreign players, we're also maxed out on homegrown players as well that aren't club trained, which is why we couldn't register Spence, even though Spence has come up through England. Our homegrown players, so players in the country, like trained in the country, it's also full. The only part of our list that isn't full is homegrown club trained, and he's not going to be a part of that. But we also can't really sign a player that is part of that unless we're signing like Kyle Walker-Peters or Dennis Sirkin or someone who came up through our academy and left, and then we re-sign. So I think we will probably use that roster spot for someone else, especially if we go into the season with 4 healthy, I guess, senior center backs. And I think we'll see him more being utilized in the Premier League and the Cups, because like you mentioned, he's going to fit into the Premier League's under 21 list, which means that we don't have to register him this season, which means that our squad list is we're pretty set with the Premier League in terms of signing under 21 players.
And it marries up to what Alistair Gold said, that the plan is this player will be part of the first team. He's not going to be one we're going to loan straight back out. So yeah, one to watch. Any other final comments, guys, before we wrap up?
I guess the one other thing that I think is interesting about him is that, like, I guess you can kind of, I'm reading into this a little bit, but I think that I obviously haven't watched many interviews with him because believe it or not, I don't speak Japanese. But he has already captained his club, which I think is really cool as like a 20-year-old. I mean, we were talking about how Archie Gray was like going to be future captain of England and how he like has shown qualities like that. So I'm reading into that a little bit, but I'm assuming based on the way that commentators also talked about it in the English broadcast that they have up on their YouTube channel. If anyone wants to watch full games of his, the J League has an English broadcast where they broadcast a few games a week, and so they have a couple of games of his on there that you can go watch, and you can just watch full 90s if you
and that's
want.
on YouTube?
It is on YouTube,
So what we'll do, the end card of this video, when you finish, it will pop up, and I'll make it so it's a video, one of those videos of him. So you can go off this, watch all you've learnt, and soak him in firsthand.
It's a fun player to watch, and you can also gain some extra like tidbits of information from the commentary, because they know a lot about him, because he won Young Player of the Season last year. He's a huge talent there, and he broke their transfer record out of the J League. So he's definitely he's definitely not an out of nowhere signing like some people are kind of pretending it is. It's just that it's from an out of top 5 league signing, which some people just like to pretend is nowhere. He is definitely someone that's been on radars of other clubs. And yeah, so I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited that he seems to have I will say maturity, because I would assume you would need to be mature enough to, like, captain your squad at 20. And then he's also already made his international debut, which is another thing that's really, really, like, positive in my opinion.
Well, leadership is a skill that we certainly want going through Tottenham squad if we want to win more trophies. So excited to have him. Great signing. Thank you guys for watching his games. I know you'd already mentioned him in the past as a player you'd noticed, but also using all those wonderful tools we have to get this extra data on him and sharing it with our wonderful subscriber base. And by the way, did you know every time you subscribe to the show, Mikel Arteta stubs his toe? That is true. So make sure you like and subscribe. And up the Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
On your Spurs.
You sick podcasts and football shows that are just a bunch of people spouting opinions with no substance. It's always toxic negativity. It's toxic positivity. There's no substance. You don't come out of it feeling like you've learned anything new. Well, that's why we created Oh So Spurs. It's the Thinking Fans podcast. I'm Jim and I'm the host. But I am only a sum of many brilliant parts. We have A-licensed coaches like JJ to help us dissect how games changed and how coaches are adapting. We have people who work in finance to tell us how much can Spurs actually spend and why we don't leave it all down to opinions when we discuss these things. We always look for the facts. We go and search long and hard to find people who've actually worked at Spurs. We talk to ex-coaches from Tottenham. We talk to ex-coaches from players we've recently signed to get you a deeper level look into them than you're going to get on a typical show on the internet. But we depend on our members to get this kind of content. To raise the bar and provide you with higher quality content, we need to find a revenue stream that is sustainable for us. And that is where you come in as members. You are the lifeblood of our show. We all do this for free as members of the show, and we need the money to survive and keep it running. So if you would like to be a member, we will promise you back an extra 2 videos per week as a minimum, and first access to our daily videos that come out as well, alongside other things like access to our WhatsApp groups where you will find those 8 licensed coaches and those finance experts and the rest of the panel to have a chat to about Spurs. So welcome to the show, and I hope you get all you're looking for and you like to stick around. Up the Spurs.